Hello, welcome to another week of the FPV podcast. This week we have a very special guest with us, and we're going to get a chance to talk about something that all of us have a vested interest in if you are doing any sort of FPV racing. I have with me Joe Scully. He's the director of FPV racing events, and I'm going to give him a chance to introduce yourself. Joe, all yours.
Perfect. Thanks for having me on tonight, gentlemen. I'm the race director for FPV Racing Events, and we are a production company. And I make the reference that we're like Batman. We are contracted to go to venues or conferences, meetups, or any sort of an event that would like to have a multi-rotor race or drone race. And, they have the concept, and we take their concept and their ideas and turn it into an actual product that people can watch, people can participate in, and we just basically make it happen. So we're very, very much like Switzerland. We are a Canadian-based firm, even though a lot of our personnel are from Canada and America. But we are very apolitical. So this isn't a sales pitch, but if the DRL called us to run a race for them, we would do it. Multi-GP, we have a great allegiance and alliance with them. We work with them. We are running one of their regional qualifiers in about a month's time using their format, their rules. We talk with Aerial GP, and we can run their format. We basically make it happen, from directing the racers to building the course, the design, the execution, our playbook of turning over the heats as fast as possible. And we are, I still believe, the fastest in the industry in the world for heat transitions at 5 minutes 6 seconds. Our best average transition time over 55 different heats. And of course, with, as Paul has coined me as the commentator as well, the John Madden of FPV. I still giggle every time I say that, but I love it. My commentary also making it engaging for spectators, even though, as we know, drone racing hasn't really filled any coliseums or stadiums. But using our program, our software, and I guess my personality, I can make an 8-hour day of racing entertaining for racer, pilot, friend, family, pit guy alike.
Hey, that's really important. That is really important. So, Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Yeah, I've been on before, but basically I try to tell the story of what it really means to be a multi-rotor pilot. So whether that's through YouTube or blogs or that kind of some kind of content creation, it's all about for every 3-minute video that you get to watch of some pilot ripping around a course or flipping over a tree or something like that. There's hours and hours and hours of content that's gone into that, of work and practice and
definitely
building and stuff that's gone into that. And so trying to tell the story of what else is there to the FPV lifestyle, as it were. How do you what does it take to get from novice to expert? And telling that story is what I'm interested in.
Definitely cool. So this week's podcast, we're specifically going to be talking about track design, and that's one of the things that Scully is really good at, and it's pretty much a part of everything you do when you go into an event, and you have to actually, manage an event. I would assume that, right, Scully?
There's a lot that goes into it. The root of multi-rotor racing, drone racing, is, the park meetup, and where people get together, they drop some cones, or they rent a golf dome or a soccer dome. They only have 2 hours, including setup, teardown, and the time that they get to fly. And they'll whip out there, they'll throw out some standard arc gates and some flags, drop some cones, and they'll race them. But where we come in is we produce the grand scale events. Even our local series that we run in Canada, they're multi-day events, and our course setup is anywhere from 5 to 6 hours, and our teardown is sadly about the same. But we put a lot of thought into it from an execution standpoint of how can we get pilots off the track and our next heat onto the track, into their seats and racing. That is a component, but then also how can we make great racing to watch and participate in, where you can have blade to blade battles. And also another big part of it is, we have a lot of newbies in our sport that we openly welcome and embrace. How can we design a course that's fast, challenging, visually appeasing, but at the same time, it's not filled with jaws of death that
will
almost
ruin their
anyone
day.
that has flown before. Yeah,
Yeah.
we try and build it in a way that everyone can fly it, and it's a great experience for all, no matter the experience.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, you like, of all the racers that I know, you love actually going on a weekend building a track and just you hammer through a lot of practices. I mean, you do a lot. So like, for you, what is it like to build a track? Is it just like I just got to get it done and you just put it down, or do you put some forethought into it?
It's probably more freestyle in terms of I kind of just walk out and see what looks good for that particular day. But 90% of the time, like you said, I usually am out there to practice, not to like actually have a competition against other people. So I pick elements of courses that I want to be better at. So, a couple weeks back, I set up a course that had the you go through one gate, turn around, come right back through another that are like immediately next to each other, like you would on the UTT course from MotoGP, the Tsunami. Or yesterday, I was trying to practice doing hairpin turns without overshooting the end so that I would come back through a gate. So I set up a course where I would do a hairpin turn, come through a gate, do another hairpin turn, go through another gate, so that I would keep that turn really nice and concise so that I could maintain speed back in through the gate. So when I go out to practice, I'm building a course to practice particular elements that I have seen as a common part of the FPV racing scene.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where if you study like track design, not just on the FPV side, but just in general, a lot of people have core philosophies that they follow. You know, there's certain things that they like having on the track, and there's certain things that they don't. So for you, Scully, when you first get into building an event for somebody, is there any core philosophies that you like to follow for building that track?
Well, the term that I coined happened from a test day when we first went to a venue to see if it was flyable. And this was our first race that ended up being in February of 2015. We tested it in December 2014. We set up some props, and my rodeo background, I set up a chicane ×2. In the rodeo terms, that would be pole bending, or when you go to a county fair what they use in dog trials. We set up that. We set up some gates out of rodeo gates. And we built this course, and the pilots smashed into the ceilings, the walls, and every obstacle we put out there. And of the 6 poles, like, the pilot went around 2 of them, was able to get, the gaps in between. And instantly, looking back, skill was a part of that. Everyone was new to it. But the other part was, that's where it wasn't a good race, that, it wouldn't finish a lap. So the term that I coined at that time, lack for better words at the time, was big and sweepy. So because video was so shaky in that building to begin with, we wanted to make sure that the gates or the turn, the flag, the corner was large enough that you could see, that you had a big enough approach to it that you could correct and go in a good line, and that those turns are really flowing. So big and sweepy. And, the first official layout then in February 2015. And, now we're in 2016, and I'm in that same building. I've already had one other event there, and I'm back in, I think, 3 weeks to have my third event in that initial building. The first track layout a year ago, it looked like a big peanut. And now we have 4 lanes, including down and back and turn in there. So it's a little bit tighter, but at the same time, it still has that root fundamental of big and sweepy, that there'll be 1 or 2 little sections to slow them down. But at the same time, we want to keep them going forward fast with as much momentum as possible. So big and sweepy, so everyone can win the race.
Cool, yeah. What about you, Paul? Is there like certain things that you like seeing on a track and certain things that you just like absolutely hate?
Certain things that I absolutely hate. The thing that I struggle with the most that I've noticed in my flying is that for some reason I can't do big, long, sweeping, arcing turns. So wherever that is, for some reason I want to cut straight through and then overshoot and come back, or I take a really, really long time to get around it. So for some reason I hate that kind of turn, but I always end up putting it into a course so that I practice it and get it better. I tend to like really tight, more on the technical side of flying, because what I enjoy the most is kind of like proximity, hitting gates one after one after one. So a common element that I put into my courses is to have essentially like a square of gates where you have 1, 2, 3, kind of each facing around an edge, so that you kind of make this really kind of sharp technical turn around through them, just because I just enjoy that, and it just always ends up showing up in my courses.
Well, that's kind of funny, because you two kind of fall on the polar opposite sides, because big and sweepies actually fall a little bit on that side as well, because you end up having more of a race, whereas like the more technical side, it seems like you're kind of just waiting on seeing who drops out of the sky first. Because
and it's not that I'm looking for something that's not sweepy, and the things that I build usually can be flown that way once you get comfortable with it, but it takes a lot to get used to it. I don't know.
So what about you?
I'm not saying I don't like sweepy, I just am bad at it.
So what about you, Joe? I mean, like, I kind of agree with you. I like big and sweepy because it allows the pilots to freelance a little bit between the sweeps, to pick their own lines to try to get through the course. But there's also, like, it's really popular right now. There's a lot of tracks where they just throw obstacle after obstacle at you. There's plenty of examples, XDC, Phoenix Cup, etc., etc. What do you think of those?
Well, I think, freestyle is freestyle and racing is racing, and they go hand in hand. And, a skills competition is a skills competition. And, I don't want to talk bad, especially one of those is an ongoing client of mine. And Phoenix Cup tried everything in their possibility to have me down there. And, we have a good relationship with David Mokwe of FPV Light Tracks. What he's built and what he's put together, definitely revolutionary. Looks great on the videos. But from a racing perspective, not a fan of those itty-bitty hoops. And I know for our big race coming up here, the Mega Drone X in April in Louisville, Kentucky, Frank has been working on a LED track as well, and those hoops are larger and the gates are larger. And that's what I like, because when you are racing on that course, and comparing light tracks to courses that we've seen as a late XDC2 versus the Phoenix Cup track, Phoenix Cup track was a little faster, much faster, larger, spaced out. I mean, that's just, field versus a rotunda in a building. But at the same time, what I didn't like on either courses was anything that wasn't circular or rectangular. Those triangles and diamonds, when you go through them, if you're not in the dead center of it, it's not as wide open as a circle. So if you go at that on an angle, you're not getting the full, it's a 4-foot opening, but if you're hitting it at an angle, you're actually only hitting a 2 by 3 foot gap, which is triangular. And
it's tough,
it's way more complex. And so when you have blade to blade racing, which pilots love, we watch the DRL footage. Yeah, it takes them 4 minutes to show a 1 minute lap. But, what did they get so excited about? This guy's following this guy. He's going to get by the leader. And, now we're on board with number 2 guy and we can see it. And I call my races now, and I love DRL, Ryan Gurry. He came to our first race that I talked about in February. He's a great guy. We're Facebook and Skype buddies. We chat. I like, they're into it and they're following it. Now, our races we call racing unscripted, because we're doing it in real time and I'm doing the commentary in real time. But I mean, I get excited as heck when you're following 2 pilots battling. And when you have those itty bitty hoops and diamonds and stuff, you can't go side to side, It
really limits how you pass too. So
we even saw, like, using everyone that has seen the tracks that I've built here in Canada, I have these massive wooden structures, and that's lessons learned. F3 Expo, we used trusses, and people would hit those. Those are very unforgiving. Now in Canada, we're using wood takes us way too long to set up, but it's way more forgiving to hit wood. But we have these gates, and they're the opening on the gate is 8 foot tall and 12 foot wide. And if you hit the gate, if it's one of my really nice banner covered ones, I might tongue lash you a little bit because they're really expensive and I want to keep them looking pretty. But you shouldn't hit the gate. You know, it's there to keep you down low or to guide you through a section of the track. Sometimes, you know, it's for technicality. A lot of times it's so you're not going 5 foot above a turning flag. So those gates are strategically placed, but I don't want people to hit a gate. I want people to go 3-4 wide through a gate. And you'll see, you know, from some of my previous races here in Canada over the last month and a half, using those big gates, we are running heats of 7 or 8, and they're all going through the gate at the same time. You know, XDC2 and Phoenix Cup, and even those, you know, those art gates. You're not running 8 through. You know, you couldn't. You know, you can't. So that's where, you know, just like, you know, the excitement of the overanalyzed 5 replays in the middle of a race of DRL as they go through that tunnel. You know, we like to see that all the time in any part of the course. And, you know, even looking back to F3 Expo, my favorite video from our racing at F3 Expo was Brain Drain and Bapu. And they started like they were on the same controller, and they held that for 5 laps, finishing 0.4 of a second apart. And their biggest deficit was like 2 seconds on a 5-lap race. And, you know, they're there, you know, almost looking like 2 bats in the air mating. And, you know, not that I'm doing a Brokeback Mountain analogy with Brain Drain and Bapu, but, you know, that was so exciting to watch. And so if you can build your course, you know, obviously you want to have the technicality so people like Paul are happy, like, oh, that challenged me, that was fun. But at the same time, you know, yeah, it was blade to blade, and I was watching him, and you know, that part of the track, I was ahead, but, you know, he got me there, and I kept trying to push to the end. And, you know, that's what we want to build, because that is, you know, that is racing, you know, that's what we try and build for.
Cool. Hey, any opinions, Paul, on the XDC2 and the Phoenix Cup? Did you watch those?
I did, yeah. I definitely agree that they were definitely overly technical. I thought they even though they were a spectacle, it seemed like a race that was made for the pilots and not for a broader audience, if that makes sense. I
totally agree with you on that, because like when I look at a track and when I design a track, I always want to put on the mindset of a spectator, because that's what I care about, is like, can I get a spectator to come watch this? Mm-hmm. And after 10 minutes of watching the XTC, I'm like, I can't watch this. Even as somebody who's enthusiastic, it's like, this is boring. It's like, there's no way I can get a spectator to watch this. But
well, it was and it was extremely challenging. And you know, yes, I was there, race director, and managing the entire racing component, and in concert with MultiGP, we used the app, and Chris Thomas and I were joined at the hip. But you know, we had nothing to do with that course design. And I think maybe 1 or 2 of my suggestions by moving a diamond and making it a square, just because what I, you know, said, instead of, you know, it's maybe a 4-foot opening, but when you hit it at an angle, you're only hitting a quarter of the gate. You know, one of those changes, but, you know, so super technical, and because of the way that you do qualifying and the formats that I run, I want to make sure that, you know, whether you're the best pilot or you're a beginner, everyone gets the same amount of track time. So, you know, when that race started, you're seeing the people that didn't even get a lap in qualifying, but, you know, they paid the same race fee, they're out there. So yeah, it got boring, but when you got to the end, you know, those are your amazing pilots, like, you know, Night Fury. You know, can you dispute that he is the fastest, most skilled racing pilot on the planet? I don't think you can. I mean, he practices on gates. I don't know if you follow any of his videos, but they are like almost like shoe boxes. I don't even know how he sees them. They're just hula hoops, white hula hoops on the grass in the middle of the day. And he hits these itty bitty gaps because he's training to hit those itty bitty gates. But how many Night Furies are there? There's one. And, you know, Brain Drain was so close to him, but Brain Drain kept, you know, he finished 4.6 seconds back, was his best deficit to Night Fury. And now, of course, I'm a big Brain Drain fan, and I think he's, you know, second or third fastest pilot in the world. But, you know, he's not as used to shooting those itty bitty gaps. So he would hit a hoop. but in a way that he would still maintain, for direction. But the technicality just didn't afford into the racing. The finals were very, very exciting to watch, but for the most part, it's no one wants to watch as a spectator or even a racer. Last man standing is the term, and when it's over technical like that, that's what you got. And if we're gonna try and grow the sport, we need something that I have David French, Thunder. I have him racing on my courses in Canada, and he can finish a lap, usually just one lap, but he can at least finish a lap. And, I had Zoomis, the, everyone knows, even though it hasn't been released, the DRL1 Miami champion. I had him on that course, and he was blazing it. And Gab 707, the fastest pilot in Canada right now, blazing it. We saw him at F3 Expo hit the podium. And Okbots, who had the fastest laps, and another one of the fastest pilots. They're having an amazing race, an amazing experience. But so is the new guy. And, I'm watching these 8-hour race days, and, even in a qualifier or a practice session, you're getting some of those battles and storylines, and it's fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. I would say, though, just to qualify my statement for the Phoenix Cup, I think that if had they just streamed the finals, I think it would have been awesome, and it would have been much, much better. But, for me to go back into Twitch and try to just find the finals, it is actually very grueling to go do that. They should have just streamed the finals. And by the way, the track, that track, when you look at it at night, is an awesome track to look at. They call it the Tron track, because that's kind of the closest thing we'll ever see to it without doing it safely. I think they should make that into a time trial track in which you're racing against time.
And I love time trial. It's really weird. I talk about this blade to blade, but at the Canadian Drone Nationals, we raced wing, and I only had 5 guys, I think. And, we race them one at a time, and you don't see it like a computer game where the leader is, but you do have, if it's time trial, you can time it, lap by lap, and this guy, he's 2 seconds back on that first lap. Here comes the second lap, and now he's made up a little bit of ground, but he still needs a 29 on his final lap. And time trialing can be really exciting, and something like that. There wasn't too much contact. Too many people hit obstacles more than they hit other pilots out there. But yeah, I mean, you watch Zachary Thayer, Anub, who won the event. You watched he was the first video to release from the Phoenix Cup, and you watched that. It was just wow, just a gorgeous course to fly. But you didn't really see any other pilots with them, and he didn't make any contact with them. And even his the final race, it was it's at night, and it looked great. But yeah, like we've already hit on here tonight, just it doesn't afford 8 simultaneously with enough wiggle room to really command the whole track.
Definitely. So, yep. You got anything else to say before we move on, Paul?
Nope.
So
it's all good.
Yeah, we beat that one to death a little bit. This I'll actually ask this in 2 different ways for each of you, since you guys are on the opposite side of the spectrum. One of you is a racer. One of you is definitely on the management and director side. When you go start building a track, is there steps that you follow, or do you kind of just let it come to you and whip it out?
What I like to do, I get the outside dimensions, and I just kind of I try and build a feature in every race. I hate to say I'm experimenting, but I try and throw something new in there. And and just like Paul said, he tries something new. He puts the gates as a square, and if you haven't seen his video where he builds the Tower of Power or whatever it was, I mean,
Tower of Pain,
Tower of Pain. He's building some random stuff. He's trying something new, and I bet you, he never races the same course. And we do the same thing. We try not to do the same course. The components will maybe be the same. They'll be in a different order, but I always try and add something new. And so, that's where I'll start. So we're doing something that my video designer came up with, the shredder, where it's kind of like 2 gates with a half-size gate in the middle. So we start with that, and then we figure out how do we want to approach that, because that's our main feature, that's our focus, and then we kind of build off there, and then we look at the main things of starting gate. I have that 100 feet from the flight line, and then just kind of build it from there. I try and maximize the space as much as possible, so get as many lanes in there as possible so you can have hairpin turns. I love hairpin turns and sweeping turns, as you know I love. If we have a spectator section or where people are going to be hanging out watching, I try and put a sharper sweeper there, so that people get prop wash and they can hear them. And then I just kind of connect the dots from there. And then once I have the turns defined, that's where the gates come in. Other than the shredder, because it's an obstacle or a feature based on gates. But once initial designs are usually your turns, and from there I'll put the gates in. And the gates are to make sure that people come down when they need to, so that I've had races where they're 12 feet above a 12-foot flag, and it's hard to tell FPV and even line of sight. Are they really making that corner? Or are they cutting the corner? And and is it one guy's 24 feet in the air and the other guy's 4 feet off the ground?
That's a problem. Yeah,
some race together, right? So
yeah.
So strategic placement of the gates from there, and then then from there we just kind of keep running the pen back and forth, make sure it flows and that it works, and look at for a few other little things, like now you got safety and gridding, where they're going to grid, how far they have to walk if we have to do manual check-ins, and then from there the last thing, that flight line 100 feet from the start finish gate, but also if it's in a weird venue, we got to do some video situation, like a la Phoenix Cup. It's hot in everyone's minds. I don't want to point fingers at them, but their flight line was in the middle of the long side, and unless you have our system where we have 4 antennas on it to give you that wide array, a venue like that, I'm going to want my flight line on the narrow side, so that if I only had 2 antenna, it's covering the entire course. So looking at all that, and once all the check boxes are checked off, and then we have a race course.
That's pretty cool. Hey, I learned something today. I'm going to make a list now. I'm going to go make a list. Okay, Paul. So this guy over here just gave you your track. How do you go about attacking it? Do you have a mentality? Do you just look at the track and you're going to be like, I'm going to struggle here, I need to practice this? How do you go about learning the track? Because, you only got so much time.
Yeah, if I can get the chance, and I usually do, I actually like to walk the course. So when you're looking at a screen, whether that's through goggles or at a screen or some sort of headset or whatever, you're only experiencing the world in 2-dimensional space. Yes, you can move through it in 3-dimensional space, but you don't have as good of a feeling of
depth.
Depth, exactly. So if I get the chance, I like to walk through the course, like to actually put myself in that physical space, so that I kind of recognize, this is where that turn is, this is what it looks like when I go through here, and then you can kind of start to pick your lines while you're physically walking around it. Then when if I get a chance to practice or in qualifying, do the first few laps slow. Don't try to get out there and really dominate it, because you want to be watching what are the flight lines that I'm going to be choosing.
Right.
Then as I'm continuing to practice, or if I know I don't have a lot of practice during my first practice, I am thinking about angles. So when I'm coming through a gate and I know I need to be turning to get through this, I think about, I make an intentional effort to think about what angle was my quad at when I hit the throttle to kind of make that turn, so that the same so that I can follow the same line every time, so that I know exactly where I'm going to come out of that turn with exactly what throttle burn, and that's going to help me continue to get through the course faster, because I know that I just need to keep increasing that angle and increasing that throttle a little bit every time I get better at the course. So put myself in 3-dimensional space, memorize turns.
Definitely cool. One thing that I will say, though, going back to your comment about it being hard to do long sweeps, coming back from a track background, I'm talking about car track, not FPV tracks, is that long sweeps requires you to understand radiuses and race lines and circles, and it's really hard because when you travel on a big sweep, you're looking for the apex, but the apex is in FPV racing is imaginary because you can't kiss the apex because then you fall out of the sky because it's usually a pole. So trying to find that imaginary apex is, I think, what most people would struggle with on a very long sweep. That and the fact that like things are so blurry that you might not even be able to find it in the correct amount of time. Just my 2 cents on that.
Oh, sorry.
The thing, like the biggest thing I love about those sweepers, not only the prop watch for the pilots and so forth, but we had our last race. It was the Canadian video pre-qualifier for the World Drone Prix. And so we had a few different pilots there, including Zoomis, the DRL pilot. And he was like, why are you guys lining your cones on the outside? Because I build the track with cones on the outside because it like defines like the lane like a traditional track. And he's like, oh, everyone puts the cones in the middle. I'm like, that's Pac-Man. I build my lanes like racing. And, you know, cones are just a suggestion, right? Yeah. And which was kind of cool. And, you know, we're kind of joking around about it. I mean, we're not being aggressive. I'm like, well, this is how we do it in Canada, bro. And so then you have
Did you mean bro or A?
No, dude, A. So then you have Ockbots, ready-made RC pilot from Texas, who's got a motocross background. He goes out, and I'm watching him on the sweeper, and he had the fastest laps in every class. He didn't win. He won one class, but he would just wreck out. He was going so fast, he was crashing into people, like just he's bananas, this guy. But it was funny how I'm like, no, you don't follow the cones, you follow the line. You're always looking your next gate. But we're watching him on the sweepers, and you know, you talk about finding the apex or you know following your axis. This guy is truly all three, you know, major controls that we have in FPV racing. So when he would attack the sweeper before start-finish gate, he would pitch his nose down, pointing at the inside cones. He would yaw in a way so he was always on that angle. So he's at like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock into the turn. And so, and he's, you know, of course, he's totally banked. He's aileroned as well. So, you know, he's on that a 3-axis turn. And I watched him numerous times. We have it on video. His camera was locked on the inside cones of that big sweeper. And, you know, a thing of beauty. And we're, you know, just being fanned with the prop wash as well. And, you know, it's
that's tough.
You know, one of the younger pilots posted a video, one of the newer younger pilots, and he says, here's Ockbots being fast, and he put it in slow motion. And it's so funny that the sweeper is really like, I look at it as the slowest part of the track. You know, yeah, a hairpin, you're basically stopping momentum, but, you know, a hairpin, you really, you know, whip in and out. Whereas the sweeper, you know, big and sweepy, slow thing. And, you know, for him to do that 3-axis turnaround at every single time was a thing of beauty to watch.
Definitely. Cool. All right. So, if we've kind of talked about how to build the track now let's talk about things that you want to avoid. So, like, I'm sure you've gone to plenty of tracks in which you weren't the designer of it. You were just there to either announce or just to enjoy it. Have you seen things where you're like, I wish they didn't do it that way? You know, or things that you shouldn't do?
Well, aside from the technicality standpoint, the biggest thing that I despise are crossovers. And, you know, and one of my, you know, I have two things that I always stand by on running an event and also for track design is first and foremost that, you know, the guy who invented motocross or supercross never rode a dirt bike. You know, the guy who took motocross racing indoors to make supercross never rode a dirt bike, you know. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, I don't race, I run races and, you know, I see what works. And, you know, every event has one of those new features, trial and error. And, you know, that we rule by democracy and decorum as well. So, you know, not every one of my ideas, you know, comes to fruition. And, you know, sometimes we'll lay a drawing out and we make changes. But, you know, I stand by that. And then secondly is, you know, we don't give racers what they want. or what they, what they think they want. They want these crossovers and super technical courses and stuff. So we don't give them what they think they want. We give them what they truly want, and those are those courses where they can race and shine and not wreck out. They can finish all 5 laps. And so crossovers are one of the things that I see in every dome and every soccer meet. And look at hate to go back to FPV light tracks, but numerous crossovers in the Zappos Rotunda, and also big crossover at the Phoenix Cup. Now, reason I don't like it is, we build these events so that we have beginners and pros in those early rounds, all racing with each other, all on the track at the same time. And, the fast guy will go around and, he'll go through the top of the crossover, and then he'll whip around the other section. Then he'll be coming back for the under, while the novice is trying to still, he's now at the crossover and he's trying to hit that gap, and he is all over the place. And all of a sudden, boom, if he takes out the leader, when I fought people on a crossover at the Canadian Drone Nationals, they're like, well, that's what racers want. That's what people came to see, the wrecks. I'm like, no, the leader doesn't want to be taken out by the Jamoke pilot who, really should have played free rider a few more times before he got on the track, right? So, crossovers are the biggest thing that I like. I just kind of skirt at. Yeah, that's my kryptonite.
That's your kryptonite. What about you, Paul? Yeah. It's like, what do you see on a track that just makes you cringe? Is there anything, or you just like crashing? I know you like crashing.
I like crashing. Crashing is fun. It's part of the thing. But let's see. I like. Let me phrase it in terms of a good thing. I like courses that limit the times where you have a drone between you and yours and your ground station. So if your ground station is in one spot, your drone is on the far side of the course, and there's another one between you and that. If you happen to be on the same frequency as one of those, that has potential to kind of start diminishing your video signal when you're on the far side. That kind of ends up being one of the things that I like to see avoided.
Okay, so let me ask you a different question, because I kind of get I understand, video, you can't work without it. Do you when you go to any event, is the placement of the ground stations, something that can irk you if you think it's in the wrong place, it's going to give you terrible video?
I've not been to an event yet where that was not thought of by the race organizers.
Okay, cool. No, I was just curious about that. So it's actually pretty interesting that there's nothing that irks you. I figure there's at least one thing, but okay, fine.
Are you fishing for something? Is there something you want me to say?
No, I'm just curious. That's all. Yeah, I'm always fishing.
What irks you? Why?
What irks me? Nothing irks me. You know that. I don't get mad. He knows I'm lying too.
I don't like courses that have long straights as well. That's another thing.
You know what? You and I talked about that. I know you.
I think there's more opportunity for skill to shine over gear in a course that limits the time that you can just open your throttle the whole way. So, the person flying a 6-inch X quad that weighs 250 grams and against the person who is, maybe even as skilled, but is still flying a ZMR due to cost or whatever, is going to lose that every time because they just cannot keep up.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, like, if you do have a really, really long straight, you need to balance it out with, like, twice as much turning area in which the track. Like, Scully.
We're getting a little feedback from you.
Yeah, Scully.
All right. I'm gonna try and go. I'm in the ready-made RC RV, and we're on our way down to Florida. So
yeah,
I'll go to the back here. It's a little quieter in the back.
Yeah, I was about to say I couldn't even hear myself think right there. It's like, no. What I was saying is that, like, if you're going to have a long straight, you need to balance it out by having something like twice as much area in which there's a lot of turning, so that if a racer is decked out with the best gear and just has a big high-speed quad that can go straight in a line, you want to balance it out with a lot of turning in another track so somebody else can make up that time. That's a thing that a lot of racetracks do in motorbike racing and stock car racing. but that's neither here nor there. So, moving on to the next subject, we kind of just covered almost everything about like current track design. Scully, is there anything that you're seeing that's like it's evolving, trends or anything that you want to see come into it, or that's naturally evolving? I mean, like one of the things that we see evolving that's pretty obvious is that like LEDs attract attention. I mean, I don't care what you say. You put a bunch of LEDs on something, it's going to attract eyes.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's the biggest trend right now is the LED that, many people are using FPV light tracks because of the XDC2 and the live stream and all the coverage and, the Verge video that had 3.3 million views, and even the Ockbots practice video that had over 100,000 views. Everyone has seen the one in Vegas and the Phoenix Cup, and in the work that we're going to do with Mega Drone X, it's going to have an LED track as well. So that is the hot thing. And even the Meet, Greet, and Fly video pre-qualifier for Dubai had FPV light tracks in Burbank, California. So, the LED is hot right now, and I think you're going to see more of it. I think the events that we're doing here, our pilots are excited. They want to see some LED action out there. Where I think you're going to see it go, because I know that we're going to start doing it, is you're going to see a hybrid of your gates and flags with the LED, and the reason being, especially for these grand scale events where you have 50 to 70 pilots and you want to give them as much practice and qualifying and even run some of your lower seed mains or elimination rounds to get to your finale. And you want your finale at night when the thing's all lit up as gorgeous as we've seen these tracks. But, we have to really start creating the same experience during the day as we do at night. Now, either you run 17,000 times more LED out there so it blocks out the sun, or you use regular gates and you line them with the LED. And that's what we're going to start doing out here. So we'll still have the gate and we'll have it lined with the LED. So at night, you're not even going to see that gate, but during the day you will see that gate. So when you're practicing and qualifying, you're running the exact same course with almost the identical visual for if you make that final 8A main for the championship at night. It'll be the best experience, again, I say it, regardless of skill, the best experience, but, regardless of when you are flying the track, day or night.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What about you? Have you seen an evolution in track design that you're kind of following, or something you like or don't like?
Me?
Yeah, to you.
Yeah. The thing that I want to see a lot more of this season, and I don't know exactly how it's going to be accomplished, but there needs to be more verticality to courses. So I love just setting out gates and flags on a field or in a building or whatever. But maybe there's a diminishing point of return on that. Can there be, something that you go up over or down through, or I don't know, like we're flying and racing three-dimensional things. Let's do some courses in 3 dimensions. I think you guys have already started doing that a little bit, Joe. One of the barn burner ones had a high gate kind of dangling down from the ceiling, and then there was the crane. Was that you guys?
Yeah, that was us too. The roller coaster.
Yeah, that thing was crazy looking. Like I was just looking at that. Like I just want to go fly over it. Like that was so much fun. So it
was so cool. Yeah,
because I think that's going to be a big fun part of course design in the next year and beyond.
Well, I mean, it is. It really opened our eyes, and we came out with the roller coaster, and then the multi GP championships were 2 weeks later, and they came up with the mad ramp.
Yeah.
That's concoction there. So, and the pilots love that. They love that 3D factor.
Yeah.
Even as, we say about how technical XDC2 was at Zappos in Las Vegas, they love that 3D element of low, high, over, down. So, we've been, we're trying to work it into our courses as much as possible. So one of the things that we did at our first barn burner is we took one of our gates and we just blanked out the inside of it, put flags on top of it, so you still had an over, because we're indoors, we only have 30-foot ceilings. Then we went in the higher ceiling, so we hung it, and then our next step for this next barn burner race is we're taking the same as what you saw at our last race, that 10 by 10 cube or square up high. We're actually putting two of them side by side, like joined as one, and we're calling it not the hairpin, but we're dropping the H. It's the air pin. So you have to go up to the ceiling, through one side, back the other, and down, and then maybe do an Immerman out of it. I don't know. That might be a little too aggressive, but the 3 component is it's exciting. It opened our eyes. You know, it's something that we since we did the roller coaster, we're like, we have to have some sort of an element like that, at least one. In Madero, we're doing the Madero Aviation Festival in just outside of Houston, Texas, this March, I guess it is. One of the elements we have there is so you race on the arena floor, then you go up into the seats, not parallel with the seating like we did at like Thunderdrone at the Jordan Dome, or that DRL was doing in the Miami Dolphins Stadium. We actually run perpendicular to the seating, up the seating, around a flag, back down the seating, and then you got to hit a gate that's on the arena floor. So, it's, we just, trying to come up with unique ideas. That's easy for setup, and it's not going to kill people because Raptors kill craft. But, it's, and as you know, Paul, because you're designing a lot of courses in real time, but also online as well, so it's a lot of fun. And I haven't got to fly it, but I've got to watch, tens upon, almost hundreds of pilots fly these courses. It's so fun to see those ideas, how they attack them, and, and where those lines are. When you design it, you think it's one way, and, to see it actually come to fruition, it really is exciting. It's like seeing your kid walk for the first time.
Yeah.
Actually, you hit on a good point. There's a few of those things that are really cool, but like, I guess the issue that I have with those is that as soon as you get into some of those verticality things, almost anything vertical, you almost start chipping away at new pilots coming in at that point, because they're already trying to learn so much, and then you're just adding more fuel to the fire of them trying to learn. So it's like you almost need to somehow make that there, but you also need to somehow make it optional. It's like it can be a part of the track, but like on these classes, it doesn't need to be a part of the track. You can just, make it throw it on out or something,
Well, yeah. I mean, you gotta build to your demographic, and even I use the example of Ockbots a lot because he's just an awesome pilot, so fast, racer experience, but he's only been flying for 7 months, so even he's like a newbie, right? So everyone, and I've seen Ockbots improve over the last 8 months that I've seen him fly, or 7 months I've seen him fly. His first ever race was that one, Paul, that you mentioned with the roller coaster. That was the first race he ever went to, so it's really cool to see, how his skill set has improved. But when we build those things, we got to make sure, I want to make sure that everyone can finish a lap. So that roller coaster, you could have just gone straight up and over. But if a beginner pilot, the advanced pilots were going up there, and then they would go, inverted to scrub speed, and then they would aileron roll out of it. So you have those technical components, and even, when the Madero one where we're going to go up around the flag and the seating, if you don't go at it aggressively, it can be done. And, the most comfortable thing for any newer pilot is to go up. So
that is actually very true.
Yeah, so we try. Again, it sounds weird, but when a pilot comes up to me midday and says, I'm done for the day, I'm out, I get upset. I'm like, well, why? What do you need? Like, what can we get you? And they're like, oh, I broke 3 arms, I'm out of props, and and I've gone through 3 cameras today, I'm done. And they leave, and if it's a new pilot, or even if it's a veteran pilot, I'm like, that eats me up, because I want to start the day and end the day with every pilot, and
it's true.
So, we build it in a way that, a fast, an experienced pilot can do it one way. When we get into our mains, we're doing 5-lap mains. So when the leader goes on to their last lap, everyone goes on to their last lap. But in an ideal world, I want that beginner to at least finish a lap, even if everyone else does 5, at least let it, because everyone gets to finish the lap that they're on when the leader's on, so I want to make sure, that they're happy. And, obviously with the format, they get to watch other pilots fly and they learn off them. And, that's a big part of it. That racer experience is so important from our design to our execution to everything that we do. Even in pre-registration and why you're doing a tremendous job here with the Megadrone X, talking to pilots, experienced guys. Here's what you need to know, dudes. And then new people. Get practicing. It's 2 months away. This is what the course is. This is the VTX. And, ground stations, we're providing them for you. And, to really help people along, that goes such a long way, because we're still in our infancy, like Dubai is going to be the best race ever, the worst race ever. It's not going to be in between. DRL, their recaps maybe 9 minutes on a 1 minute lap, or maybe they'll actually do more than one lap. Who knows, multi-GP, maybe in 50 countries by the end. Who knows? We're all learning together, growing together. And the only way we're going to do that is keeping the pilots that we have happy and bringing more people into the sport and giving them a great experience.
Totally agree. So I'm going to go off on a tangent on our last subject. And this is something that, it's like we've pretty much focused entirely for the last 15 minutes on just racing, but a huge component of the sport is actually freestyle. And is that something that you start? Are you going to start seeing coming into racing, in which there's going to be a part of the racing element is going to be a freestyle element to it? Like, people just want naturally to have a freestyle competition along the way as well?
I mean, I'll lead it into racer experience. So I'm, because of the F3 Expo, everyone really knows my opinions of freestyle after F3 Expo. And it's actually funny, Zoe FPV, the only female pilot at the U.S. Drone Nationals, and she was in freestyle. She called me out on a Periscope. I think the Joe and Joe, Joe from Ready Made RC and myself, the Joe and Joe Periscope show. She's like, you really got to stop busting on freestyle. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I do appreciate it. And it definitely has a place.
You heard it here first on this podcast.
And in reality, my background, rodeo, motorsports, and monster jam, and professional bull riding as well. I mean, all these things you can see influence in the events that I run in our production, and we're always trying new things. But I look at Monster Jam, and having announced many of those shows and being a part of it, it's all about spectator experience there. But there's racing and there's freestyle. And, sometimes the racing in a smaller arena is boring as all heck, because they start at one end, they finish at the other end, and all they do is jump over a car. Like, the actual race is two monster trucks going 60 feet apiece. Very boring. Sometimes they'll be in a stadium and they got a Chicago turn, and racing's a little more exciting. Still, it's racing, green light, go tone, that's exciting. And then, when you get the Monster Jam game for the Wii or the Xbox, first thing you do is you freestyle. I mean, even Mario Kart, you freestyle. You just screw the course layout. I'm just going to go and try and smash and everything. Freestyle is awesome. And then, you have your maximum destructions and your grave diggers flipping onto their lids, and, maximum destruction, the first ever monster truck to do the backflip. That's exciting. But if you look at a Monster Jam show, which is 2.5 hours from start to finish, if it was all racing, whether it was a Chicago or just over the bump over the cars, that would be boring as heck. And if you were to watch 2.5 hours of gravedigger, braking, being flipped over, trying to get restarted, maximum destruction, by the time they went through those 8 to 13 trucks, you'd get bored. You'd be like, Cyclone, I get it. Donut, I get it. Big air, they're going to hit the school bus now. Oh, I get it. But, balancing the two of them is very exciting from a spectator experience, and they do go hand in hand. And, good racers can be good freestyle pilots, vice versa, showcases skills. And from our event experience, when I created the Winter Barn Burner Drone Racing Series this winter, I didn't include freestyle. However, every event we've done freestyle on Saturday night, because, we've raced the course. We do our first day as a practice plus we do theme races like a GoPro race or the World Drone Prix authentic race, 7 kilometers, 8 in the air with pit guys. But then Saturday night we freestyle. We have a great time, one at a time. I do the commentary, and we have a blast doing it. Then Sunday race day is just racing. But for a pilot experience, just unwind, have fun, because there's pilots that have no business doing freestyle. They're having fun. They're laughing. You know, I give them the Monster Jam intro. Here comes David French, Thunder. And, you know, the freestyle, the last race, he didn't even get off the starting block. Like, he had a prop upside down. And we commentated, like, there he is. Have you seen a yaw roll like that? And he just kept spinning round and round. And he had his goggles on, just smiling like, you know, happy, like a kid that just had his first ever lollipop. You know, so we had a blast doing it. I think, you know, the two of them, they do go hand in hand. You know, you want to practice for racing. You know, you don't have time to go to those golf domes all the time, but you can go out and go through the bush, and you know, you can set a course up, and you know, you want to practice your coordination. You know, that's where you're hitting those gaps. That helps you, and I think they really go hand in hand from that racer experience and from the spectator experience. And you know, and I love freestyle. I love racing a little bit more, but you know, I have mad respect for, you know, our big names, as it were, you know, Final Glide Oss, who, you know, U.S. Drone Nationals, but, you know, world champion right now, you know, world champion racing and freestyle, you know, did it again at F3 Expo, but Schizo had the best freestyle, you know. I didn't even see any of those guys race at F3 Expo, but you know what? They're awesome pilots, and that, you know, to watch them freestyle, racers, guys who tried it, they enjoyed it, and you know, you appreciate it. Like, you know, everyone's talking about Boris B, air mode, air mode, air mode. Well, we all saw what Schizo did without air mode. Like, Schizo is air mode, you know, so yeah. You appreciate it, and you know, I think it's a big part of our industry. You know, I get my nose out of joint when people go out and they, you know, try and play ping pong through the trees, or they'll call it shooting the gaps, but it's ping pong through the trees, and they're like, hey guys, I was out racing today. Like, no, there wasn't a start, there wasn't a finish, there wasn't a predefined course. You were playing ping pong, or you were freestyling. But you know, doing them both right. I mean, they definitely are a big part of our sport. Without one, the other one would suck. They're kissing cousins, as it were.
You heard it here, folks. Joe Scully can no longer rag on freestyle. Joe, not Joe. Paul, what do you think? Freestyle, do you like it at every event? Is it just something you do just for fun?
It seems more like a fun thing to me. Like, racing is racing, and then freestyle is more like kind of go out on an afternoon drive and have some fun. Like, they kind of just seem like two different things. And as far as like having a competition for it, it all seems at this point maybe a little bit too subjective. I think, you know, if we got more established boundaries and rules and decisions, like with the X Games or the Olympics or something like that, to where, you know, you could do that, but I don't know, maybe that would get boring. So it's fun. I go out and I fly around, I flip over trees, I fly through crap just to have fun, but I'm not sure it's necessarily part of a competition as much as it is, hey guys, watch this.
These guys watch it. But
yeah.
Like when you go to a big event, do you kind of expect to have freestyle there, or do you be like, oh, it's a big event and doesn't have freestyle, don't care?
I would expect there to be guys showing off and having fun, doing freestyle sorts of things, sometimes between rounds or whatever. Not as an official, like, we're gonna freestyle now and here's this guy getting points. But that would be, I can see that being fun, like you're saying. Like if you announced it and had fun with it and just didn't care and said, hey guys, watch this, and just screwed around with it, awesome. If you're gonna make a competition out of it, I have yet to be
all serious over here.
Sold.
He's like, I want to win. That's all I want to do. I want to win.
Well, I mean, what we do is we set up our, you know, I have the Landshark DP ground stations, or the super stations. We have 8 of them, and we'll get 4 pilots to goggle up. We'll tune all the stations in, and they'll judge on goggles. Or at the last race, we just, you know, set up a monitor, and we let them score it. I mean, we We have takeoff is being scored, landing is being scored. Those are like 10 points apiece.
Yeah.
Use of obstacles is 20 points apiece, and then overall wow factor is like most of the points. And you know, because it is fun, it'd be really cool. Like from a production standpoint, is after that's done, boom, 70 points. Like that would be if we were to redo F3 Expo over again. These guys are scored. Boom, that's the score. Just like figure skating. Now you know you saw what he did. You know, you can. You know, everyone's a judge, and you know, a judge.
Everyone's a judge. Yeah.
Judging is an opinion, and you're not always going to agree with the judge. I mean, that's what judging is. But you know, to have that bar, that it adds to it, and. But I mean, we have a lot of fun. I mean, like we make sure that there's people out there that have no business being in freestyle, and as soon as someone hums about it, I don't know, I'm like, you're in, you know, because we just have fun with it. I mean, I give away a frame, you know, or golf shirt and a ball cap, and no one cares. At the events that we're running, you know, obviously.
Oh
boy,
he totally he must be over his internet bandwidth.
They just left Canada.
The ready-made RC truck just left. For those of you who don't know who are listening to the podcast, Joe Scully's traveling currently with Ready-Made RC, and they're probably going to an event of some sort. That's why it was so noisy and why they're so rowdy back there. But I'll see if I can get them on. Hey, Paul, wrap us up. What are you doing for 2016? Where do we expect you? Where can we find you? All that junk.
Let me go back and look at the notes. I'm sorry, you asked me too many questions at the same time. What am I expecting for 2016? I'm expecting verticality. I'm expecting better run events. I'm expecting more competition, more people, more competitions, more regional events. I just kind of more of all of the same and better.
Sure, that sounds good. What about what do you like besides? I know you're coming to the Megadrone X, which I'm thankful you're coming. But is there any other events on your checklist that you want to be at?
I am committed to go to Megadrone X in the caverns. Hello, Joe. You back?
Hey, yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. We're just wrapping up. We're just wrapping up. Go ahead, Paul. Continue.
Oh, actually, can I step back to freestyle for a second?
Sure. Go ahead.
Did you guys both see that recent Rotor Riot episode where they played quad?
Yeah.
Why did you see that? So basically, you know how you play horse or pig in basketball?
Yeah.
You do a shot and then the next couple people have to repeat it.
Oh, I see where it's going.
With doing tricks.
Okay.
I think that would be an amazing freestyle competition if you did something like that. So,
dude, it's in.
I just wanted to throw it in there. I thought that was a fantastic idea. Best episode of Rotor Riot yet. It was an awesome time. I think that there might be some opportunity there for something in that vein.
Scully, write it in. Go ahead. Where else are you going to be in 2016, Paul?
I am. So I live in Indianapolis, and my budget and vacation is limited to places that I can get to on the weekend fairly easily. So I'll be spending as much time as I can in Louisville with the FPV Race League, and there's actually a big group in Chicago that do a lot of events up there, and they're hosting. I know that they're going to be involved with the multi-GP regionals for the Midwest.
Awesome.
So that's going to be late in the season that I'm going to try to go to.
Definitely.
My wife and I are planning a vacation to Hawaii around the same time that Drone Worlds will be. So I'm kind of hoping I can qualify for that because I'll be there either way. So
hey, if you don't earn a spot on the team, you can always be a spotter for one of us.
Yeah, exactly. That's my plan. So I'm going to try to win my way to Drone Worlds, but either way. So.
Cool. Hey, Scully, where are you going to be in 2000? Yeah, no, you're still here. Do you hear us, Scully? Nope.
Oh, there he goes.
Okay, where can we find you on the internets, Paul?
Yeah, you can find me at youtube.com/c/Bulbufet/FPV or at paulnercola.com. Both of those are good places to see.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know why it dropped again.
Hey, you still on? Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
I was trying to get him on. And
No,
yeah.
it's all good. But yeah, so but yeah, I post videos to YouTube and I post lots of supplemental stuff and details and whatnot to my website. And I've got a lot of pretty cool projects coming up. So go ahead and subscribe and check it out. It's gonna be awesome.
Cool. All right. Now I'm trying to figure out Skype, which is terrible.
I hate Skype.
I know. I'm sorry. Where is the button for? Here's the competition. Let me add Joe Scully back in. Apologize, folks, but Scully's traveling, as you know, and that causes all sorts of issues at times.
We can always cut around this, right?
Probably have to now at this point.
To tape.
Hey, Scully.
Hey,
All right.
weird that it keeps dropping.
Yeah, so we're wrapping up. So just go ahead and tell us where you're going to be at 2016, and where can we find you on the internet?
I mean, we got a really big 2016, so we're right now going to the CFL in Florida. Then we go back up to Canada with the Winter Barn Burner Drone Racing Series presented by Ready Made RC. Then we'll go to Madero Aviation Festival in March down in Texas. We're also doing drone wars all across Arizona, Texas, California. We'll do a few more events in Florida, and we're going to be at FPV Fest in Ohio, Canadian Drone Nationals, and even going over to France for a European Cup race as well. So we're, basically we're going worldwide with our great sport as it grows. So we're enjoying that, and if you want to find out more about us and where we're going, of course, we're at the Mega Drone X in April in Louisville, Kentucky. Can't forget about that. If you want to find out more places that we're going to, you can visit us online at fpvracingevents.com.
Yep, and keep in mind, folks, that if you are thinking about hosting a racing event, they are definitely a great person to contact because, as you can tell, they do a lot of events and they run it really well professionally. And also check out our video that I just posted. Scully just did a narrative about their awesome ground stations, and it's definitely pretty cool to see. Do they actually sell those at Ready Made RC, ready to go, or do they? You have to piece it together yourself?
Yeah, it's all the individual components. So we haven't finished the 3D design, so we may release the 3D design, but basically Alex, the engineer from Ready Made RC, gutted the Oracle and the Duos and merged it all into one box, which is, as you just heard, we're doing a lot of traveling. So 8 base stations, we really got to be compact to be able to put it in a GPC case. But, you can buy all the components individually from the Oracle box, which is the magic or the brains or the guts of the operation, which takes 2 Duo diversity receivers from Immersion RC and gives you the best of those 2 Duos. So it's quasi-quad diversity and different antennas for different venues. We use True RC X2 Airs and traditional Immersion RC patches and Fat Shark Omnis as well. So for the best antenna configuration, we have, I don't even know mathematically, but we probably have about 40 different configurations that we can use, and we dial in every station, all 8 of them individually for the best possible video. And we've been very successful to be in these different venues that are basically RF hell, that some buildings were deemed unflyable, a lot of them really rough with goggles, and using the Landshark DP or the super base station and the proper antennas on them, we're able to get 7 or 8 in the air, blasting through any Wi-Fi interference, and of course multipathing from reflective surfaces. And of course, Brain Drain, of course, is the guy who we tip our hats to. He was the guy who put his first system together and put it on Facebook. Took it to a underground race, I think in Las Vegas. And Voodoo Quads, 2 weeks later, they built their own stations because they became believers. And those 3 stations are what saved racing at F3 Expo. And as soon as we saw those, I'm like, I want them. And now we have 8 of them, thanks to our great partners that really take us everywhere. Ready Made RC, the leaders in all things FPV and beyond, Immersion RC, and DPC AV, in addition to my newest partner, True RC, with their X2 Airs. If you haven't tried those antennas, even just on goggles, they're absolutely amazing. They give you a higher gain and a larger beam, and they're truerc.ca.
Cool. I'll definitely have to check those out. Paul already dropped off. I said goodbye to him, and he's off to bed. Joe, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you coming in, sharing your knowledge, and just joining the podcast.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in April at the Mega Drone X, the world's first subterranean FPV race. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I know you and Frank and your team have been working, pretty much 7 days a week here, 24/7 on construction, design, marketing. And again, as a race organizer, I got to say you guys are doing a tremendous job, and we're really excited with FPV racing events to join you guys to really take this outstanding event, make it sensational, and that is a collaborative efforts. We're looking forward to seeing you, racing with you, and of course having some fun with you as well at the Mega Drone X in Louisville in April.